Hi, my name is Bil'ak. I'm joining from my studio in The Hague in the Netherlands. It's a pleasure, it's a joy, and it's a miracle to be speaking to you far away in South Korea while I'm still in the comfort of my studio. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm delighted to speak about the new project, which is inspired by language itself. The use of language itself is a primary inspiration and subject of artistic work with deep history in literature and art. And I mean work of artists like Stéphane Mallarmé, Marinetti, the futurist Guillaume Apollinaire, or Tristan and many others who explored language potential not just as a medium for conveying meaning, but also as a material with its own texture, rhythm and structure, paving the way for contemporary language-based art and literature. You may be familiar with the work of Guillaume Apollinaire, a French pioneer of juncture of visual and verbal and auditory modes of expression. On the left, you see his well-known Il pleut, the rain, from 1916. And on the right side, even older, Lettre au ciel, the ship-to-ship letter. Something that he called a calligramme, bringing together the French words for calligraphy and ideogram. Even before him, the work of Stéphane Mallarmé visualized speech and sound and brought unusual non-linear typographic layout which anticipated the 20th century interest in graphic design and concrete poetry. When I was growing up in Czechoslovakia, I was inspired by the visual language of Central European avant-gardes of the early 20th century, which directly builds on these explorations. Here is Red, which is a literary journal of Czech avant-garde designers, designed by the writer, designer, and conceptual artist Karel Teige, which influenced me strongly in my early ages. And for a long time, as a designer, I wanted to make a typeface whose main visual forms would be based on something so primary and so basic as circles and squares. And I considered not just building them as building blocks of the typeface, but also naming like this. So this would be a name, circle, 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 or square, 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 or combination of them. That would be the name of the project itself. And these are the early sketches, focusing on the critical part of the avant-garde typography, and that is the rejection of ready-made fonts in favor of hand-lettered, custom-made typography for each project. I made these sketches a while ago, maybe 15 years ago, and I've been always dissatisfied that converting hand lettering into digital font is always very difficult, and results are often being too static or too predictable. And I thought that the way to improve it would be to draw multiple forms of each letter, and then creating some kind of mechanics to change between different forms. That would create something more visually interesting, something like this. So these are first names of the people who influenced the project itself. Architects, designers, poets, artists, and you see some name, Mies van der Rohe, Ladislav Sutnar, Laszlo Moholy-Nagy, Vasily Kandinsky, and more. This typeface, which eventually was published, was called Julien, and includes numerous letter variants which can be combined to achieve the best combination of shapes when setting words, and controlling an algorithm that automatically triggers different versions based on specific rules. So it would be drawing 20 different variants of each letter, which would create this unpredictability. And this is how I imagined that the font would be used. It would allow using basically the language itself as a strong visual graphic element, which doesn't need other visuals. It promotes text into function of an image. It's still readable, and readers can still engage with content, but you don't need any other visual elements, graphic elements to make it. So the typeface itself will be sufficient to hold and engage readers in storytelling. Here you see two blocks of Lego, something very basic, something that most children know, And the element of play is a very important part of what artists and designers who use language as a module material use, because you see infinite variations. So from these two blocks, you can imagine these different variations. Something so simple as two blocks can present basically a universal system. And two blocks can be combined in 24 different ways. If you add one more block, suddenly the variations can be over 1,000 variations, how things can be combined. This is how I imagine language works. You have basic building materials, but from these building materials you can create infinite ways how to create unusual, unique, original expressions. And we as an artist, we have to recognize the basic tools of communication and use them to the fullest potential. This is another project of mine, something called the Q project, which I created in 2020 and 21. It is a play-like system, and I wanted to create an open-ended system where parts are defined, but the resulting combinations are endless, because there are so many variations which they can be impossible to control. It is inspired by games, which has its implicit rules and provides stability, but like any good game, you don't really know the outcome of the game. There's an element of surprise. And with so many different bases, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different bases, and 35 different ways to combine serifs, and which can be also layered. It creates nearly infinite different ways how to shape language, and where you promote language again to an image, where it's a visual communication. This typeface was inspired by a game. This is an earliest game that I remember playing with. It's called Merkur. It's a metal construction set built in Czechoslovakia in the 1920s. And it's perforated piece of metal strips and wheels and axles that can be combined with nuts and bolts, similar to a Meccano. However, there are examples of inventors who use the same game to prototype their work. For example, in 1961, Czech inventor Otto Wichertle succeeded in producing the first contact lens using this game in a homemade apparatus, and would invent something completely unexpected. I love the idea to create a system that can be used to create other systems and opens new creative opportunities. And again, this is how I imagined this typeface could be used. Using different colors, using different layers, using different ways of transparencies and layering, create unexpected ways to generate shapes. The letters can be broken into strokes to create entirely new forms, just like toys like Lego and Meccano can build something that designers envisioned, but also you can create a free play and do something completely unexpected. And these are some of the results that you can create using the system. Again, you don't need any images, photography, no other graphic elements. You can use the typeface itself as a visual component, very strong visual component to do your work. It is a toolkit. It is a framework for creation. It also takes some patience. It takes time. It is not a production tool. It is an exploration tool. But with this exploration, you can discover something which was not entirely planned. Something that there are no guarantees, but it can bring you joy by inviting people to invite you to this creation. Basically, the system invites you to solve puzzles which doesn't exist yet. It's not very practical, but it's an important new way to explore new possibilities. Now, this project is not about Latin, it is about Hangul system. And I was delighted to be invited by AG Typography Institute to participate in creating a new Hangul typeface based on the modular system developed by An Su. And my personal ambition for this project was to combine, everything I mentioned, my interest in language, understanding language and the visual components that make the language and type, but also understand how Hangul works. And in order to see it, you need to understand the history of Hangul. Hangul is a unique writing system which is very logical, with visual meaningful shapes, which have ability to balance phonetic accuracy with aesthetic and spatial efficiency. It is fairly old, developed in 1914, in 15th century, and extremely practical because it was an attempt to increase literacy. I don't think I need to explain to you, how Hangul works. You know it very well. The basic principles, the basic vowels are rooted in physical world, the sky, the earth, and the human, which is very much aligned with the East Asian philosophy. I've been to South Korea multiple times, and I remember in 2017 visiting the Hangul Museum to witness this incredible exhibition of artists and designers inspired by the principles of Hangul alphabet. And I was impressed to see how various artists interpret the shapes and forms, just in the way how I explained before, that people recognize, and see the systems behind it, and then create something new using the same principles. So understanding the system is essential in order to do something. There's a simplicity, there's logic, there's phonetic alignment, which is very scientific and making it one of the most intuitive systems in the world. At the same time, I looked for something more than just scientific and efficient system. I looked for creative applications, and just like European avant-gardes, it allowed me to discover a new work of Yi Sang, Korean cutting-edge writer, who was also a working architect, and who created visual poems which inspired future generations of designers, and used the language in a very creative way. His work has been an inspiration for many people, and for me in this project. Produced surreal, highly experimental, autobiographical pieces, which are far ahead of the time of the period. And this influence was carried to the next generation of Korean artists and designers, and one of them being a person which I'm honored to consider a friend, Ahn San-soo. So you can see the clear lineage, link between all the elements which I mentioned, between the work of Yi Sang and then following designers of people. And then you can see also how this work, this Mano, modular typeface, Hangul typeface, which breaks the unusual monospace rhythm and creates unique syllabic box and completely unexpected rhythm. And I think that rhythm is the key to this project, understanding the principles of Hangul alphabet. So I decided to use all the influences. Again, the exploration of visual characteristics of language, visible work of Mallarmé, Apollinaire, designers of avant-gardes, but also basic principles of Hangul, and inspiration explored by Yi Sang or Ahn San-soo, but also to bring my own interest in modularity of language and its creative possibilities. I decided to use just the three primary shapes: a circle, a rectangle of two different widths, and created a playful typeface concept, which was extension of this project which I mentioned before, Julian. So using just these three different forms, I was hoping to create variations which would be as unexpected as the work which I've shown before. And this is the result. This is the basic syllable Han, and you can see how the two different shapes of rectangles, the circles, can be combined in unexpected ways, but still render fairly readable way that can be recognized as a letter. It is an image, but it's also a letter. However, what was key to this project was to create, some kind of rules, some kind of randomized algorithm, which creates, I created together with a font engineer, Roberto Arista, open type substitution scripting language that creates unique flow of letters. So there are specific rules that prevent repetition of shapes, and becomes extra fun to play with fonts and applications which support these open type rules. So Julian is scripted. I'm going to show you how, but you can also override these scripts and to create new unique possibilities. In order to do this, we have to create very massive glyph set of letters. So as you know, traditional Korean font contains about 11,000 glyphs. We had to create, at least 5 different variations of each letter. So it would be, close to 55,000 characters, reaching near limit of what open type technology can do. And then we would have to write controlling algorithm that switches between different shapes. So every time you type something, you never get the same thing, because there is a mechanics that shift and swap shapes for one and each other. Let me show you how it works. So for example, if you type the same character Han multiple times, and I'm just keep typing the same character, you don't get the same shape, but the shape changes. It's replaced by the algorithm, by the substitution rules of the OpenType layout features. So I typed it 5 times here, and you see every time is different. It is still equally recognizable, but graphically varying, and every time giving you a possibility that there is no static shape. It is dynamic as the language itself. And this is how I imagine this typeface could be used. Creating, again, not a productivity tool, but a toolkit for creativity, exploration, and expression. Something that designers can embrace, and I see it as a semi-product, something which is not finalized, but is inviting other people to take and to do something unexpected with this. So a typeface with the huge creative possibilities that allow you to create strong, short visual messages by using the typeface itself. It's been a joy to bring and bridge bridges between different scripts, between different cultures, because I believe that creativity is not limited to one language or one region or one group of people. I believe that creativity exists everywhere, and very too often it has been explored only in the Western world or only for Latin script. And now we can see that we can bring the same ingenuity and same creativity to different expressions, even those which are far more complex, such as Hangul, with a far greater character set, that we can still bring technically and aesthetically a very interesting device that allows us to create something unexpected. For me, it was an important learning lesson, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to learn something new. Thank you very much.